Hello, ladies and gentlemen of District 31 in Anchorage, Alaska. I am Daniel DiNardo. I'm standing for election to the House of Representatives for the state of Alaska in this 2008 election season. I represent the Alaskan Independence Party. I want to continue my discussion of Sara Palin's criminal gas line. It's an absolute total fraud perpetrated by the Communist Republican Party because of their obedience to the cult of personality that's developed around her through the media. They didn't use their own individual reasoning, they didn't use their own individual responsibilities, and they didn't utilize their own individual responsibility to you to exercise their independent judgment before they vote on something that is going to cost this state billions in lost revenues, billions and tens of billions of lost revenues. They've already thrown away $500 million on a communist-controlled Canadian corporation called TransCanada. Palin likes to put it out there, oh, it's an Alaskan corporation. The fact that it's a corporation is the problem. The fact that it's a Canadian corporation is a problem. And the fact that it's a communist corporation is a problem. This woman will say absolutely anything that is acceptable through the media. Remember, she has a journalism degree. She didn't go to the Idaho, University of Idaho or Idaho State or wherever she went. She didn't go there to learn how to spell out the truth or to write honest publications or report the truth in the press. She went there to learn how to manipulate the press, how you get over on the people, as Herr Goebbels said under Hitler. If you tell a big lie often enough, then pretty soon it becomes the truth, because the people don't have access to anything else. She's in violation of her oath of office to uphold the federal and state constitution by telling the truth. And she's perpetrated this massive fraud that these lemmings, and if you want to use Lenin's descriptive terms, useful idiots, like Bob Lynn from District 31, who said it'd be a gigantic financial disaster if we didn't vote for it. Mr. Lynn, you don't have a clue about any of it. And all you prided yourself on is entering ethical legislation, you call it. Ethical legislation, there's enough ethical legislation on the books to kill a horse. The fact is that you perpetrated one fraud after another by aiding and abetting Bill Allen's surreptitious and criminal conduct in the legislature because you voted for the piece of legislation that exempted him from actually having to file as a lobbyist and allow him to sit down there on the legislative floor kibitzing and pressuring and committing fraud one day after another. And you're responsible for that, Mr. Lynn, and you know you are. The record is there for anybody who wants to look at it. Natural gas prices, oil prices, gold, silver, all commodity prices are on a steep, historic, cyclical downtrend. Gas has been up to $11, $12, $13 an MCF. It's heading down. It's going to go back to where it was when it started, less than $2. Less than $2 an MCF. You know what that means? That means that gas line is already totally economically unfeasible. Nobody's going to sell gas to an empty. Who's going to build an empty pipeline, first of all, when nobody's going to sell at that price? Nobody's going to sell at that price because the market is glutted. It's not only glutted with foreign imports, it's glutted with Canadian, and it's glutted with U.S. produced. Gulf Coast and continental production of gas is at historic levels, and there's more on the way. That gas line is meant for one thing. That is to control the state of Alaska. It's a state now because it's an international corporation, but it's to prohibit and to impede the development of Alaska as an independent republic that I've repeatedly spoken to you about, is specifically mentioned in the book of Revelation in Holy Writ. That is the Alpha and the Omega of the law. There is nothing in that book that is never carried out through history to be absolutely, factually, and completely true. And all these naysayers, these so-called scientific types or the geeks or whoever they want to call themselves, they can't stand up in any debate in the public forum and prove that Holy Writ, written by the Trinity through the Holy Spirit's intervention and inspiration, isn't absolutely true. Take a look around you. Take a look what its predictions are. They're totally accurate. And you're living in those situations. Holy Writ it states explicitly how a nation should form what you call an economy. And the principles, very simple principles, no more complicated than the Ten Commandments. But what's happening? You have lawyers, you have bankers, you have communists that are creating complexity. Perpetual war for perpetual peace. Change in and of itself for its own sake. That's what they preach. That's their mantra. Come right from the Marxist-Leninist dialectic. There is nothing new about the manipulation and the conspiracy of evil that has beset mankind from the beginning and is still here, present, growing stronger. But it has been defeated. It was defeated 2,000 years ago with the birth of Christ, and then with his crucifixion, it was over with. But everybody lives today as a loser. They don't see the hope. They don't see the light. Why? Because of the propaganda machine, the same propaganda machine that has created Sara Palin. That gas line should be built one way and one way only. That's strictly an intrastate gas line to build a foundation for this independent republic. One of the fallacies of this pipeline project of the Sara Palin crew is that how do you denominate the natural resource you're going to ship? What standard do you use? They use Federal Reserve notes. And what is a Federal Reserve note? It's a document of perpetual annuity debt. It has no determinable value because it's never meant to have any value, because its value fluctuates with the tide because it comes through the law of admiralty. And ultimately, it really doesn't have any value because its promise is to pay $1 at the end of the line, but that end of the line is military war against, well, first of all, against the United States in an attempted military takeover of Alaska, which will never succeed because the book of Revelation says that it won't. We will be an insuperable and a very powerful Alaskan republic protected by the very simple common law ideas of Nikola Tesla. And that's guaranteed. And the book of Revelation states explicitly, we will live in relative peace compared to the rest of the world, and we will not be conquered. In fact, from Alaska will emanate the forces of the Trinity that are going to overthrow Satan and the beast and the Communist International. It's right in there. It's explicit. It's black and white. And all these charlatans who call themselves evangelists, they don't know it because they live by fear. They live by hate, and they live by dissension. And the book of Revelation, through the gift and inspiration of the Holy Spirit, is in total opposition to what they preach. They don't preach hope because that's already been established with the crucifixion. That's why when you go into their churches, you don't see the cross. You don't see Christ crucified because they're not real. They're corporations, communist corporations, still perpetuating that myth of the Luciferian Marxist-Leninist dialectic. Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Their world is a circular world that feeds upon itself in self-destruction. The world of the Trinity is linear. There's a beginning and there's an end in eternal paradise. So back to the reality, when you talk about money and you talk about so-called economics, talk about the pipeline, it's a comprehensive, overall, a very interconnected concept. You can't accept one in place of the other. You can't build a pipeline utilizing Federal Reserve notes and federal funding, which are nothing but Federal Reserve notes in a checking form or in a computer form, and think that you're going to have anything of success. You can't serve two masters. And the Federal Reserve represents the Luciferian dictatorship of the Marxist-Leninist proletariat. Now I'm going to end here, and I'm going to continue again talking about this diabolical project of Sara Palin's in its present form of the Trans-Alaska criminal gas line. Thank you very much.